I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.
Hello there, Price of Reason here with a series review. Last week we saw the premiere of Ahsoka on Disney+, and while I didn't prefer the show, to put it mildly, I have decided to review episode 3 to see if the show would get any better. Unfortunately though, not only has the show not improved, I would argue that episode 3 may have been the worst one we've seen until now. In this video, I will talk about what I didn't like about the episode, what I did like about the episode, and then give it a final score. Episode 3 starts with Sabine training with Huyang the robot. She's apparently just okay at fighting according to him, so Ahsoka decides to spar with Sabine herself, but to make her training more difficult, Ahsoka covers Sabine's eyes in what looks like a type of callback to Luke in the first Star Wars movie. Somehow with Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi, it actually looked cooler, even though George Lucas didn't have the type of visual effects that Disney has available today. Anyhow, at first Ahsoka continues to have the upper hand while fighting Sabine, and while Sabine is able to improve a bit, she's still giving in to her anger and frustration or something. Meanwhile, Hera is doing a Zoom call with Mon Mothma, who is now the Chancellor of the New Republic, and other senators. She tells him that she believes that the Imperial loyalists she encountered on Corellia were part of a bigger operation, and that it's somehow all connected to Thrawn. But some of the senators think that Thrawn is already dead, and that the only reason that Hera is bringing this up is because she's trying to get resources from them to find Ezra Bridger, who they believe died along with Thrawn in the events of Rebels. Hera then runs into her son Jason. He says that he heard that Sabine is going to be a Jedi, so he wants to be one too. And although this is quite annoying, to be fair, as opposed to Sabine, Jason may actually be Force sensitive since his father Kanan from Rebels was. Anyhow, Ahsoka tells Sabine that she's greatly improved during their brief training session, and Sabine then asks Ahsoka to expedite her training because she doesn't know how to use the Force. Ahsoka then tells her that everybody can use the Force, it's only a matter of talent, which is an odd take, but we'll get back to that later. Ahsoka then advises Sabine to start small when it comes to using the Force. Huyang the robot then tells Ahsoka that Sabine isn't considered an acceptable Jedi candidate by Jedi standards. This is very strange since Huyang himself is the one that told Sabine that she has to be a Jedi in episode 2, but maybe his memory banks are faulty or something. Ahsoka then tells Huyang that Sabine doesn't have to be a Jedi, she just has to be herself. And yes, that line is very cringe. Sabine then tries to use the Force on a cup and fails. Hera then tells Ahsoka and Sabine that she can't help them in their mission because the Senate refuses to give her resources. I mean, couldn't she just get into that ghost ship of hers and join them without talking to the Senate about it? Does she actually have to call the Senate before she does every single little thing? I don't remember her calling them when Ahsoka and her went to Corellia. Anyhow, Ahsoka and Sabine then decide to drop out of hyperspace to find Lady Boss Morgan, but when they do, Sith Girl and her associates are ready for them, in what feels like another type of callback to the first Star Wars movie, also known as A New Hope. Sabine goes in back and fires at the enemy and takes out 3 ships. They then encounter a mysterious hyperspace ring and want to learn more about it, but then they're attacked by Boss Lady Morgan's turbo lasers, so their ship gets a critical hit and shuts down. Ahsoka then tells Sabine to fix the ship right away, while she puts on a Power Ranger suit and destroys enemy ships in space with her lightsaber. Yes, this actually happened. Sabine obviously completes the ship repairs in about 2 minutes, and after encountering the space whales first introduced in Rebels, they land the ship on Boss Lady Morgan's planet. Sith Guy then tells his people to go to Ahsoka and Sabine's landing site and to destroy them. Now let's talk about what I didn't like. Number 1, the dialogue. It's no wonder that Hollywood's writers are worried these days that studios will replace them with AI, because I honestly think that AI could have come up with some better lines than what we see in this episode. There's something so uninspired about some of the dialogue here, especially for the characters of Ahsoka and Sabine. During the training sessions, the writers want Ahsoka to seem like a wise mentor, but the dialogue Rosario Dawson is given is so poor that you never quite take what she's saying seriously, and Sabine's dialogue is very bland as well. The worst example for this is when Ahsoka tells Sabine that there could be real consequences if she's not prepared for battle. And Sabine says something along the lines of, "Yes, tell me about it, I just got stabbed with a lightsaber." This nonchalant way of discussing this is absolutely ridiculous. Being stabbed with a lightsaber used to mean that you're dead. That was a very real consequence. Just ask Qui-Gon Jinn. Also, during the space battle part, when Ahsoka and Sabine are under fire, the dialogue writing is equally as bad. For example, Ahsoka randomly asks Sabine twice, "What do you need?" I guess because she wants to help her? Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like anybody would talk that way during a crisis situation. The scenes with Lady Boss Morgan and Sith Guy also feature some very generic dialogue. I'm not even blaming the actors here. Some of them are better cast than others, but regardless, they really have very little to work with here. Surprisingly, the only scene that was written in a somewhat passable way was the Zoom call between Hera and the senators, and although I still believe Mary Elizabeth Winstead is miscast as Hera, I will acknowledge that with a bit of dialogue that wasn't so dumb, her acting was actually considerably better in this episode than what we've seen in the previous two. Make of that what you will. Number 2. Lore vandalism. The Last Jedi introduced the idea that anybody could be a Jedi if they wanted. That's how we ended up with Broom Boy, and now Dave Filoni has injected this idea into Ahsoka. It's very much a Kathleen Kennedy type of idea, which I assume was initially a way to work around the Skywalkers in their own saga. It also fits with the type of agenda Disney likes to peddle these days overall. You can be whatever you want to be if you just decide it, especially if you're a woman that looks like a little boy. Number 3. No men. Again. In this episode, holograms and robots aside, we don't see a live male character on screen until the last 30 seconds, and although the dialogue given to the late Ray Stevenson couldn't be more forgettable, you could tell what an effort he makes to try and sell it. Aside from that though, the overload of female characters here makes this entire show, and specifically this episode, feel more like a raunchy parody of Star Wars rather than the real thing. I've said this last time and I'll say it again. Having female characters on a show is overall a positive thing, but not having any male presence at all to balance that out creates an imbalance that is simply never resolved. This, along with the writing, are the main reasons why Ahsoka just doesn't feel like Star Wars. Even Rebels, which this show acts as a sequel to, had 3 male characters in it, and male enemies too. I mean, how many girl bosses do we possibly need in one show? We got Ahsoka and Sabine, Hera, Sith Girl, Boss Lady Morgan, and Mon Mothma, and they all appeared in the same episode. There's no male student, no mentor, no male villain, not even a male comic relief. Once again, as Kathleen Kennedy wanted, the Force is female, and once again, it simply doesn't work, and it completely tanks the show. Number 4. Possible multiverse. For some reason, I feel like the super hyperdrive rings, space whales, and previous clues we've seen are all trying to imply that Thrawn and Ezra are stuck in some type of alternate galaxy or something. I sincerely hope that they're not trying to make this some type of multiverse gimmick like in the MCU, but we'll have to see how it plays out. If I had to say anything good about this episode, it's that although the overall writing is poor, there were a few ideas which weren't completely wrong. Acknowledging that Sabine needs to actually train to be a Jedi and attempting to show her during training isn't necessarily a bad idea. Hera getting criticized by the senators wasn't necessarily a bad idea either, but unfortunately, the execution is still very poor. All in all, episode 3 is another stinker. Based on the marketing, I assume that at some point Anakin Skywalker will appear in the form of a hologram, illusion, or dream in order to tell Ahsoka that she's the best. And I feel like it's not really a matter of if this will happen, but when it will happen. And much like in Kenobi, Anakin's appearance probably won't be able to save this show. I also wouldn't be surprised if every episode moving forward will be worse than the previous one. What did you think of Ahsoka Episode 3? Did you love it? Feel free to let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and also clicking on that wonderful notification bell. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.